Martin Scorsese is one of the most acclaimed American directors of all time. His films often explore themes such as Sicilian American identity, Roman Catholic concepts of guilt and redemption, machoism, modern crime, and gang conflict. Despite this, he has an incredibly varied and accessible filmography that includes a romantic drama, a taut urban cop thriller, an oddball comedy, and a religious period film. The Oscar winner has directed 25 films and counting, not to mention numerous shorts, documentaries, and TV episodes. He has a vast amount of films that are staples of pop culture, with numerous performances and scenes that have become iconic over time. Many years ago, I used to be a content provider on IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. I stopped doing that once the site started to become more and more commercialized, and the final straw was when they got rid of the message boards, which, funnily enough, was one of the things that motivated me to create a YouTube channel and start talking about movies here. Anyway, one of the things I used to do was create polls for the website where people could vote for certain things. One of these polls was for the most iconic scene from a Martin Scorsese movie, and I thought I'd share the results here. Just a few things I want to mention before we get into it. First of all, the results of this poll are not my opinion. They're the results of around 5,000 votes or so from movie fans on IMDb. In fact, I disagree with a lot of the rankings, but that's the beauty of polls. You have your opinion, I have my opinion, and the results are a collection of numerous different film fans of different types and from different backgrounds. Secondly, the poll was made some time after the release of The Wolf of Wall Street in 2013, meaning there will be no results from Scorsese's Silence or The Irishman in this poll. Even though there are a few scenes from these films that might end up being iconic, especially from The Irishman, it's probably for the best that they're not included, because part of what judges how iconic something is longevity, and there could be recency bias for The Irishman, for instance. In fact, I think this poll's results do suffer from a bit of recency bias. Anyway, on to the poll itself. There were 27 options, and here are the top 10 from the last to first, as voted for by the IMDb community. At number 20 of the most iconic scenes from Scorsese's filmography is the confrontation between Nicky Santoro and Sam Rothstein in the Las Vegas desert in Casino, after Nicky becomes irate that Sam complained about him to the bosses back home. Perhaps my personal favourite scene from Casino, featuring Joe Pesci at his vintage sweary best, and it features one of my favourite shots of Scorsese's entire filmography, with Pesci's car driving across the desert reflected in De Niro's shades. Number 19, and we have another confrontation between De Niro and Pesci, this time from Raging Bull, in which a paranoid Jake LaMotta famously asks his brother, "You fuck my wife?" Number 18, it's the scene from Cape Fear, in which Max Cady, recently released from prison, cackles away in the cinema in front of the Bowden family as he begins to stalk the lawyer who helped put him behind bars. At number 17, it's the sudden death of Tommy Devito in Goodfellas, as the low-level gangster is tricked into thinking he's going to a ceremony where he'll be made. And yes, his name is Tommy Devito in the film, you bastards, not Tommy DeSimone as it was in real life. So you can stop taking the piss out of me on that other Goodfellas video I made about why he was the only one murdered for the Billy Bats murder. Now that you've learnt something, you ignorant baboons. Number 16. It's another one from Casino here, the opening sequence of De Niro walking to his car with his voiceover about loving someone, before the car suddenly blows up and the movie transitions beautifully into the film's opening credits. By the way, did anyone notice that horrendously obvious dummy in the driver's seat just before the car blows up? Sheesh, Shoemaker, you probably lost a chance for an Oscar for this scene alone. Number 15. Quite a surprising choice here to be so low on the list, but it's the classic go home and get your fucking shine box scene from Goodfellas, in which Tommy and Billy Bats square off in the bar after the latter's release from a 6-year stint in prison. Number 14, and it's the Layla murder montage in Goodfellas, in which Henry Hill tells us in a voiceover that Jimmy Conway was cutting every link between him and the robbery carried out by his crew by murdering them one by one, including 2 garbage men finding a mobster in their dumpster truck, and another scene of a gangster frozen in a meat truck. Number 13, the ending of The Departed, as the apparently victorious, slimy villain Matt Damon slides into his apartment, only to be greeted by a gunshot to the head by Mark Wahlberg as a rat scuttles across the balcony. Number 12, Another movie ending, and this time it's the final scene of Raging Bull, as a fat De Niro sits in front of his mirror and recites Marlon Brando's "I Could Have Been a Contender" speech from On the Waterfront. Number 11. Another Raging Bull scene. This time the epic beatdown Sugar Ray Robinson delivers to LaMotta, and his staunch refusal to go down, followed by him telling Robinson, "You never got me down, Ray." On to the top 10 now, and first we have the brutal opening battle sequence of Gangs of New York, where Bill the Butcher, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, and his gangs of natives face off against Priest Vallon, played by Liam Neeson, and his dead rabbits. At number 9, we have the Fugazi scene between Leonardo DiCaprio and Matthew McConaughey in The Wolf of Wall Street, as Jordan Belfort is seduced into the Wall Street lifestyle, with McConaughey thumping his chest rhythmically and making a weird song. Interestingly, this is actually one of McConaughey's methods of preparing to film a scene, which was spotted by DiCaprio and subsequently put into the movie. Number 8. The scene in Taxi Driver, just after the climatic shootout, where Travis Bickle raises a bloody hand in the shape of a gun and points it to his head in one of the most memorable images from the film. Number 7. The opening of Goodfellas, where a young Henry Hill looks down on the mobsters with envy, featuring the classic line, "As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster." Number 6. The legendary one-take dolly shot of Henry Hill and Karen as they walk through the side entrance of the Copacabana restaurant, in and amongst the hustle and bustle of kitchen workers and restaurant staff. On to the top 5 most iconic scenes from Martin Scorsese's movies now. And at number 5, we have the cerebral palsy stage in The Wolf of Wall Street, where Jordan Belfort and Donnie Azoff cause havoc in Belfort's home as the two overdose on Quaaludes and get up to all sorts of shenanigans, climaxing with Belfort having to stop his friend choking when he shoves too much ham in his mouth. Number 3. The ending of Shutter Island, one of the most thought-provoking scenes of the film, which split audiences as to what state of mind Teddy is in when he says, "Which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man?" followed by the long walk and the final spooky shot of the lighthouse. Number 2, and I think we all know what the top 2 are, because it could only have really been these two. But with just under 1,000 votes out of around 5,000, it's the legendary funny house scene from Goodfellas, the ultra-tense confrontation Tommy has with Henry Hill, before the two erupt into a fit of giggles. The scene was directed by Pesci himself, and is based on an incident that occurred in real life when Pesci, whilst working at a restaurant, complimented a mobster on how funny he was, but the gangster was less than impressed with the compliment. The background cast were unaware of what dialogue would occur between Pesci and Liotta, making their reactions all the more authentic. And finally, at number 1, voted as the most iconic scene of Martin Scorsese's entire career with almost half the votes, it's the "You talking to me?" scene from Taxi Driver, where Travis Bickle talks to himself in front of his mirror, with dialogue that was improvised by Robert De Niro and copied, homaged, parodied and spoofed to no end in the film medium, even by De Niro himself in a scene in The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. So there you have it. What do you think of the results from this poll? Do you agree with the overall rankings? Are there any entries you don't believe should be on the list? Any omissions that you think should be on the list? And what does your own personal top 10 list look like? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.